Okay, finally, we're sitting down and we're able to record again.
Holy shit! Yeah, now
It
that
has been
life.
pretty much nothing but chaos since convolution, to the point I didn't even have the
Ugh.
convolution podcast up yet. Hopefully, it'll go up before this one. If it
So,
doesn't, I'm sorry for the continuity errors. Don't send us angry emails.
all right. So, what season and episode is this again?
Welcome to season 4, episode 9 of Your Book is Why Daddy Drinks, featuring this month's book, Insanity by Cameron Jace. Did I skip something? I did. Our introductions. I'm
Yeah,
Tyler.
and I'm Matt. Yeah. So, to kind of give you guys a brief rundown on me, and then Tyler will go. Life's been insane. Let's see. Um, New job for me that basically was being brought on to tackle open enrollment season. Now, if you've ever been at a place that offers benefits, you know that during the open enrollment period for when people can sign up for benefits can be very stressful on the HR department. Now, imagine you're doing that for 22 different companies and many of them all at the same time. And that was basically my job for the last couple of months. So, yeah, I've been basically working full time or more hours and then coming home and having to take care of my wife and kid. In the meantime, beyond that, unfortunately, a couple weeks ago, we also suffered a new thing that never happened to me before, which was that my house got broken into. Yay! That was a bunch of bullshit. And so we dealt with that. And at the same time, on the same night, I discovered that our stove was leaking gas. So it's been life's just been kicking me in the nuts. But it's been getting better. For instance, for me, spot of good news today. I'm getting converted. So yay, full-time regular job. Working employment again. That's awesome. I was really dreading having to possibly go back to looking for work at the end of next week, and now I get to not have to worry about that. So yay, they like me. Tyler, go. What's been going on with you?
We moved in
Mm-hmm.
end of June, and then my wife got a new job up here in Northern California and loves it, and they're awesome, and they love her, and that's fantastic. But I still have not been able to find work. I had a few connections that didn't work out, and I've been looking for stuff and trying to make new plans. But then about a month and a half after we moved up, my dad had to have a major operation, and I've kind of been
Taking care of
chauffeuring
him.
and taking
Yeah.
care of him for the last 2.5 months, basically 10 weeks, yeah, and trying to find work and all that too that would work with that schedule, and nothing so far has. But things are going better. He's recovered very well. Doctors are like super impressed with his recovery, so I'm looking
Oh,
to
that's
be
good.
able to work full time start of the year.
Awesome. Well, I am glad that your dad's feeling better and that he's doing well. So yay, good. So things are on the upswing. Now, before we mentioned it earlier, we've had basically a little bit of technical difficulties with the laptop that Tyler recorded the convolution podcast on. Basically, to be perfectly blunt, it went tits up. And so Tyler is going to pull the hard drive out hopefully tomorrow so we can get at that file and get that up and posted, because I know that a bunch of people have been waiting for that, and I know that we want to get it up on the website because we don't want to be missing anything, because that would be weird. But yeah, that's basically where we're at right now. So with that in mind, Insanity by Cameron Jace.
This is
This
another BookBub find. Thanks,
Yes.
thanks so much, BookBub. Like, I don't think they understand how much they've done for us.
I knew as soon as you started talking about it and I started seeing what they put up there that there was going to be some choice books for us for this podcast on it. Now, to
Mostly
be
because it's a lot of self-published stuff.
Mhm.
Um,
now to be fair, there are some legitimate um books on there. Like,
right.
for instance, like just today they posted one for an anthology called Sympathy for the Devil, which is an anthology just about stories that feature the devil or a character like the devil, and it's I enjoyed it. It's it's your usual anthology experience, right? Where you're gonna like some of the stories more than you're gonna like some of the stories, but I happen to really like it. And it had some really really awesome short stories, and including one about a cat that protects its owners basically from the devil trying to show up and do things to them for some reason. But it's well written, it's awesome, and so I would recommend it if you can find that deal, get that anthology because it's certainly worth I think the $2 or whatever BookBub was doing the advertisement for.
So this book I actually picked up not intending it to be for the podcast. I saw this book and I was like, this might actually be good.
And then you read it and you're like, we got to do
was-
this one.
Well, no, here's the thing. I got halfway through the book before I was like, fuck it, I can't do this. I'm done. And then a week after that, I went, oh shit, duh. I know what I was before. And then I finished reading it last week.
Yeah, it's okay. So anyway, to kind of get into the synopsis of it, I'm not going to do a full synopsis because I hated this book a lot. I just really could not stand it. I thought it was just terrible bullshit, and unfortunately, so
unfortunately, there are at least 5 books in this series.
Yeah, so one of the things that always chaps my ass is that I'm a psych major, and I have my bachelor of arts in psychology from UCSC. It's something I went to school for. Um, I'm not a trained psychologist in any way, shape, or form, but the concepts and histories of mental illness and things are things that I have studied that I happen to enjoy and be very passionate about. And this book just pissed me off. And the reason why it did is the same reason why if you're a gamer, this is going to make total sense to you. The reason why most Malkavian players piss me off, and that's because they label any kind of weird or odd behavior as insanity, and then suddenly it's just supposed to make sense or be acceptable. And that's how this book is. So getting into the plot, basically, you are introduced to a character named Alice who lives in an insanitarium. But it's not just in any insanitarium. It's like this penultimate premier insanitarium in England. And she is tortured pretty much daily by these 2 orderlies who are basically caricatures. And I don't know if they were supposed to represent like fucked up versions of Tweedledum or Tweedledee and Tweedledum.
I don't think they were, because everybody who is from supposed to be from Wonderland seems to know, except for her.
Yeah. So and they do things like beat her and give her electric shock therapy, even though ECT or EST is not really done that much anymore, except in very extreme cases for very certain things, because of how destructive it is to people. And she's basically, through her, we are introduced to the world, and the world is basically that for some reason Lewis Carroll is much more important, and she also doesn't really remember anything about herself or her past. Like, for instance, she doesn't really understand, like, she's told why she's in the sanitarium, which is
hang on,
but
we can't just gloss over that, because she murdered a bus full of people.
Yeah, she basically got up while the bus was in operation, walked to the front, grabbed the wheel, and twisted it sharp to the right, crashed it, and killed everyone but her. Sure, just because, right? And that's apparently just, and that's just how it's portrayed in the book, is that she just got up and did it. There's a little bit more to that, but we'll get to that in a moment. And another thing about this insanitarium is that even though it's supposed to be this high security, modern sort of institution, it is bullshit. It is written it's written first of all by someone who I very much doubt has ever even been in a mental hospital, let alone an insanitarium, and or who has zero idea of how they're fucking run. Case in point, this insanitarium was specifically modified to house a serial killer who's basically the caterpillar from Wonderland.
What's his name, Matt?
Some
What's his name?
I don't remember his first name. His last
You
name
don't
is
remember his name? His name is fucking Carter Pillar.
Carter Pillar, and he's a serial killer. He's known as Pillar the Killer because that's original. But literally, he is supposed to be the caterpillar. He carries around with him constantly a hookah hose, which apparently can stretch and act like a whip that he can do any number of fantastical things with, where he can just use it to like kill people on a whim. And he is famous. He has killed multitudes of people. He is extraordinarily well known. And he is supposed to be housed in this insanitarium specifically for him. Like they built an entire like suite for this guy because for some reason serial killers warrant suites. I mean like fully furnished, like embassy, like your home away from home bullshit.
They kind of imply that he gets special treatment because he has dirt on the warden, which there's a warden in charge of a mental hospital.
But beyond that, he's also apparently able to come and go at whim.
Right.
And not only is he able to come and go at whim, apparently these coming and goings include going to a like nightclubs where he's able to just apparently pick up chicks. Because his introduction to the book is that we're told that he has escaped. How he escapes, no one knows. But we're told he has escaped. And he shows up at the gates of the institution in a limousine full of basically the background dancers in any really terrible rap video. Like, booty shorts and tall boots and just dressed like they're going out to a trash nightclub. He then is able apparently to produce magical smoke, or at least poisonous smoke, by puffing on his hookah pipe, even though I don't think there was a hookah actually attached to it, and even though that's not how hookahs work. And yeah, like he's able to just come and go as he pleases, and apparently, even though he is this super famous serial killer, no one on the outside notices, and it's a big point of consternation for the warden and chief psychologist because, if it gets out that this guy is able to leave, then he's going to get fired. But how this super famous serial killer isn't noticed on any of his jaunts out, who knows? So, at the same time that we're introduced to them, we're also introduced to the fact that there's another serial killer who is out there killing young girls, who goes by the moniker of the Cheshire Cat. And the Cheshire Killer kills people and then basically stitches up their mouths so that they're doing the typical very wide, long Cheshire grin. And that's just causing a great to-do that this is the greatest, most prolific serial killer since Pillar the Killer. And basically, I don't even remember how we got to it, but Pillar thinks that Alice is actually Alice from the books. And to make a very long story short, Wonderland is supposedly real. It is populated by people, or it was before they all fled to the real world. And it is also populated by the Wonderland monsters. And basically, how to kind of sum it up is the Wonderland monsters are what would happen if you took the somewhat inhuman characters from the Lewis Carroll books and then meshed them and made them Lovecraftian. So they are all they're called they're referenced as the Wonderland monsters, and they were locked away. They were either locked behind in Wonderland, or they were locked away here on Earth but neutered in some way. And basically, the Cheshire Cat, in order to try and draw out Alice, because Alice is important to some sort of plot that they're involved in, kidnaps a girl but doesn't kill her, and basically uses the girl and Pillar to get Alice to come out of the insanitarium, because apparently the only person who can catch the Cheshire Cat is Alice, despite the fact that through the entire plot of the book, the caterpillar knows everything. And so really Alice is not that necessary, because Pillar knows everything, except that Pillar apparently can't go out and be seen investigating because he's super well known, despite the fact that he's able to just come and go as he pleases, and does so with startling regularity. And over the course of the book, we're introduced to such characters as, was the Red Queen that one chick in Parliament?
They call her the Duchess. I think she was the Red Queen.
Okay, so we were introduced to the Red Queen. We're introduced to the Knave of Hearts.
Oh, you know what? No, I'm sorry. We're not. It's not. Knave of Hearts. I think she was the Red Queen, because the Red Queen is different from the Queen of Hearts.
No. But
sorry, Queen of Hearts, not the Red.
Okay, Queen of Hearts, and then but we are introduced to the Knave of Hearts, because he's this kind of asshole character who has hearts, playing cards like stapled to his coat.
She calls him Jack Diamonds.
Jack Diamonds, but he's really the Knave of Hearts. And we briefly see the rabbit, because the rabbit is the one who was driving the bus, and maybe Alice was trying to wrest control of the bus from him, thinking that he was going to crash the bus, and she ended up doing it for him. We're introduced to the White Queen, who is apparently a super important nun at the Vatican, who also is apparently a master swordsman or swordswoman. And we're introduced to like a couple of other characters that are kind of from the books. Like, I don't remember there being a rat in the books, but there's a Wonderland person who has rat-like features, who basically is the Pillar's like chauffeur and like chief servant, but he never talks about anything. Never really talks.
Dormouse?
Well, wasn't the Dormouse with the Mad Hatter?
Yeah,
and that crazy rabbit
and the March Hare, and they actually mention them and say, "Oh, if they'll get out if."
It's super bad, because Alice at one point references the Hatter, and Pillar's like, "Hey, you really don't want that to happen." So basically, we find out over the course of Alice's attempts to rescue the girl that the Cheshire Cat has kidnapped, that Lewis Carroll somehow discovered that Wonderland was real, and kind of like a mystical crusader, used magic and the Vorpal sword to combat the Wonderland monsters. And there was a war in Wonderland, and the Wonderland inhabitants that weren't the Wonderland monsters fled to Earth, where they've basically been living in exile. And if you kind of think of like the comic books fables, it's very similar to that.
It's like that, only shitty.
Yeah. And they live and they die and they reincarnate, or they live forever or whatever. But there's a lot of hand waving that goes on. And meanwhile, the Wonderland monsters are locked away. And at one point, Alice even has a vision of Lewis Carroll locking a gate behind him after doing battle on the other side of it, and he gives her a key. Now, we come to find out that the Cheshire Cat is, in fact, the Cheshire Cat killer is, in fact, the Cheshire Cat who has been trapped here. And he is one of those Wonderland monsters who lives here, but has had their power stripped away from them. So they're basically a monstrous human, but they're basically human. And he is trying to find his power, basically his grin. And he can't do that because he's been looking and looking, and because Lewis Carroll basically stripped him of his magic and put the grin in two parts: in the soul of a particular girl who is from the town where the Cheshire Cat was first written about.
And this is what bothers me about this
What?
book. The author justified Lewis Carroll's creepy predilection for taking pictures of underage girls by saying, "Oh, he trapped monster souls in those photos."
Yeah.
God damn it. He could have just
And
not said anything about it.
and he also put the other half of the power in a mask that he disguised as part of a cat sculpture. And basically, as a way to kind of like hide it, he had a friend of his who was a sculptor basically travel around England and Europe creating cat sculptures in various towns. And the Cheshire Cat has been looking for the girls and has basically been killing the modern reincarnations of those girls that Lewis Carroll took the creepy pictures of, until he found the one who he knew held his soul, who he didn't kill, because if he killed her, then she'd just reincarnate. But he can't take that part of his soul back without having also the mask at the same time. So while he's been traveling around, basically, he's been using the girl as bait and had Alice go and track down the mask and find it. And so he has Alice bring the mask to where was it? A town in
No, Alice didn't have the mask. He had the mask, and he needed to wait for a certain time to do both, to suck the girl's soul out, because cats suck children's souls out while wearing the mask.
Yeah.
But they show up to this town,
As it
Ypres,
where was it?
during it's called Ypres. I think that's how it's pronounced. I'm
Ypres, yeah.
a little drunk right now. And takes her up to the tower, where apparently they used to have this festival to murder cats because they thought cats brought plague. And starts this ritual with all his little with his followers, because he's apparently got a cult now.
Oh, it's in Belgium. That's
in
right.
Belgium, right?
Yeah.
And Alice manages to grab the mask. Oh, yeah, she grabs the mask, and the girl gets away with both. But then, fucking out of nowhere, the Cheshire Cat hits the car they're in with the bus and somehow is able to grab the girl while Alice is unable to do anything. That scene was such bullshit.
Yeah, it just happens.
It
Right?
all
Like,
just happened.
yeah, and like,
you know
so
what? You know what it sounded like? It sounded like some shitty GM running a game went, "Oh yeah, you can't do anything about it."
well, so the thing is that, so to kind of backtrack a little bit, Alice tracks the Cheshire Cat down to this town in Ypres in Belgium, where they have a festival, like Tyler said, where they kill cats. And it stems from the fact that the town had, I think, a lot of cheese. And so they had a lot of cats, because the cats would come from all over the place to eat the rats. But when the plague happened, the townsfolk blamed the cats. And so what they would do is, since cats are very hard to catch and very hard to kill, they would take the cats and stuff the cats in bags. They take the cats up to basically this clock tower, and in the bags, chuck them out the window. And at that point, we come to find out that the Cheshire Cat was a real cat at some point. That this real cat had cat feelings. and this cat was very mad at people because he watched his family get stuffed in a bag and thrown off this tower and die. And part of his revenge, because he hates humanity so much, was that he was going to replace the fake cats in fake bags, since people now know that the plague was not in fact caused by cats, and that they shouldn't actually be throwing cats in bags out windows. He was going to instead swap those cats in bags for like lions and panthers and fucking cheetahs and shit, and basically threw these
Through lions and
lions,
cheetahs and
yes,
shit
out.
out the window, so they're
But,
fucking tearing shit up.
but the thing is, he threw them out the window of a tower, right? Like, this is not like, he just threw it out. They landed 5 feet out the window. This is supposed to be from a.
They never actually give you any kind of height.
Well, sure.
But it's far enough that
Alice has to
when
use
Alice
him.
jumps out, she has to use fucking Mary Poppins style umbrella to float down to the ground.
Yeah,
Or getting into a car that then the Cheshire Cat rams with a bus.
See how
this book is stupid.
See how stupid this book is, listening audience. So
It's
anyway,
cool. We're almost done.
Yeah, so the Cheshire Cat gets the mask and gets the.
He doesn't have the mask. Alice has the mask. Cheshire Cat has the girl.
Well, sure, but then he's able to suck the girl's soul and get his power back. And you find out, like, I can't remember the name of the movie, but there was a movie that had Denzel Washington in it where he's a police detective, and he finds out that there is actually a demon, and that this demon starts playing this cat and mouse game with him. And the demon's power is that basically, if you are not a good enough person, the demon can inhabit you, and that the demon is passed by touch. So, like, if you're walking along and you're not a good enough person, and you're what was it?
Fallen,
and there's a scene in the book where the demon is chasing this nun who is trying to hunt it down, but she has this crisis of faith, right? Because only somebody who is good can withstand being possessed by the demon's touch. And how do you really ever know if you're good enough? And that's her crisis of faith. And there's this one point where she comes face to face with this demon and starts running away from it in a crowd. And the chase is literally just one person after another reaching up and touching the person next to them, and the demon jumping from person to person. And that is the Cheshire's ability, which is that he can inhabit anybody.
Right, but he doesn't get that ability back until Alice goes back to the insane asylum, and the caterpillar says, by the way, he called me and he has the girl and he's willing to trade you the girl for the mask. Now, if he gets the mask, he's already got the girl's soul, so he'll get his power and basically start Apocalypse. If he doesn't get the mask, he's going to kill the girl. So Alice is like, oh my God, what do I do? And she has a meeting with Lewis Carroll somehow, where he basically tells her, I know you'll do the right thing.
Well, that was earlier when she was at the church or something. I don't remember.
That didn't happen until later. So she basically says, you know what? You're right. I know what I have to do. Gives him the mask, finds out the girl is safe, and the Cheshire gets his power, and then he's like starts jumping around to all these people, and she goes, that's because Lewis Carroll, the White Queen said Lewis Carroll had to take away his power because he couldn't kill the Cheshire Cat. You can't cut off its head if it doesn't have a body, is what they said about him. So he's constantly jumping around. That's why they can't kill him, because he's just going to jump into someone else. And then she goes back to the insane asylum, and the whole time she's been doing this, there's been like news reports of her saving a girl in some town, and like she's on the news. And then she goes back and she's talking to the two idiots who are torturing her, and she's like, you know what, they're not going to believe me anyway if I tell them this, so I'll be like, hey, I saved that girl. And they're like, what are you talking about? She's like, I'm in the news, haven't you seen? They're like, there's nothing in the news, you're crazy. And then the caterpillar shows her that she's in the news, so she goes back.
They try to gaslight her, basically.
Maybe.
Yeah.
What I think is happening is Cameron Jace thinks she,
I don't know.
I don't know. Cameron Jace thinks they are Bret Easton Ellis, and they're like, "Oh, I'm gonna American Psycho it," and be like, "Is it real? Is Alice actually crazy? And is she imagining all this stuff, or is it actually happening?" Because Alice is the only narrator the story has, and she's
Yeah.
completely unreliable. She might be imagining all of this. This might be, the second half of Taxi Driver. So it tries really hard to leave it ambiguous in did it really happen or not. But it sucks so bad that it's just infuriating rather than interesting.
Yeah.
The book tried to be American Psycho, but it failed so hard.
Now, so I mean, my problems in this book are many. One, who Cameron Jace, if they paid for an editor, they need to get their money back, because there were several points in the book I noticed where there were either dropped words or there were actual words, but they were the wrong version
Right.
of the word, right? Like the whole there issue. There were the pacing of the book was weird, just like with Sharkano. Um,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like you have characters traveling very
Very little
far
sense of time.
very far distances in very short amount of time. And a large part of my problem with this book is just the vast amount of hand waving it does, right? Like at one point Alice asks, she's like, "How am I supposed to do this?" And Pillar just tells her, "Oh, just tell people you're crazy." And I'm sorry, if you're somebody is acting bizarre and someone says, "Don't worry, I'm crazy," that's not going to put people at ease. They're going to go, "Okay, let's call the authorities on this strange person." Like especially like when she's running around. What was the church? The first part where she finds the girl at first
It wasn't a church. It was
is the college.
the college, right?
Yeah. So she's running around this place that's famous for being where Lewis Carroll wrote the
Oxford.
books, and um, she's just running around like touching famous pictures and paintings, and nobody's stopping her or
Mind
calling
you,
security.
she's fucking like 16 years old, and she's wearing. She's okay. So there's this thing that people do at Disneyland. It's called
Mhm.
it's called bounding,
Okay.
and it's where they dress up in like modern clothes that have the same color scheme, and basically they look like modern versions of Disney characters.
Now, is that the way that they get around basically
The no costumes
the
thing.
fan band? Yeah.
Yes. It's called Disney bounding, and it's basically I'm gonna dress up like fucking Winnie the Pooh, but you're not gonna know that I am, but everyone knows that I am. So she's basically bounding as Alice because she puts together because when Pillar manages basically sets up a deal with the warden to let her out during the days. She's only allowed out during the days because then she has to go back to the asylum every night. So everything she does in the span of a day and then goes back,
Yeah.
which is fucking stupid. They bring her clothes, like a whole wardrobe to pick from, and she picks this blue and white outfit basically that everyone recognizes as a modern take on Alice. On
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so this child is running around fucking Oxford, fucking their shit up, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's cool, she's crazy," which leads me to believe that none of it actually really happened, except for the fact that there's 5 books, and you're not going to have 5 books of somebody making shit up.
Yeah. And so there's that level of hand waving. There's the fact that like so in modern fantasy, oftentimes when you're given a world, that world is in some ways at least consistent and things, right? Like it's like when you think about it, like unless something behaves in a certain way, uh, unless something is given a specific reason why it does not behave in a certain way, it's supposed to behave like normal, right? Like a gun in modern fantasy will function like a gun because it's supposed to be this world in this time, unless it's like a magic gun or there's something unique about it. And in this, you have you have like the caterpillar's hookah hose, which apparently can change length at any given time and do any number of things. Like he's able to just crack it like a whip. And I don't know. I don't smoke, so maybe hookah hoses are stretchy.
Not like
I
that.
I don't think they are. I also don't think that they're exceptionally long, considering the fact that usually, from what I've seen of hookahs, you kind of lounge around them.
I mean,
And
if your hose is long enough to lash across a room, wrap around somebody's neck, and all that shit, you better have amazing lung capacity if you're actually going to smoke out
yeah,
of it.
and or the fact that he's able to like puff up like these poison clouds,
Yeah,
right?
it's
And he's able to not just puff up like a little bit of poison, like, if you watch an old like martial arts film where the bad guy's able to like breathe out like a poison breath or something like that. But like he's able to like fill a room full of toxic smoke. And that, and I assume that's because he's a creature of Wonderland, and so he's able to do something like that. But it just, like, instead of feeling like it was part of, like, it made sense in the context of the story, it really just it didn't. Right? Like, if this character is supposed to be a human being who is imbued with some aspects of the the caterpillar, it's I don't know. It's just the whole thing didn't work. Um, and so much of the plot, like the way that Alice gets around things, it seems to be hand waved with the, well, she's crazy. So crazy people just do crazy things, and therefore she can do whatever she wants. It just so for me, it didn't work as a book. Um, I thought that the concept of Wonderland creatures and the Wonderland monsters as these kind of horrible, fucked up Lovecraftian deities locked beyond this reality, sure, that makes sense. But and that could work as a concept, but the author's approach to how they tackled normal humans, right? Like that didn't really work for me. And then how they would interact with the Wonderland people didn't really make sense. Um, and it felt like the character attempted to make the author attempted to make no real attempt at actually knowing anything really. Like he makes up this supposed Catholic ritual that the White Queen is a part of as this like head nun. The trip to the Vatican seemed really, really short, and I don't think Alice's outfit included a dress. Like I think she was in pants, and the Vatican's got a very strict standard about letting in women with pants, as in
they even make
they
mention of
don't.
the Vatican's dress code when the dude takes his hat off.
Yeah,
It's like they don't allow hats in there,
and
but it's just supremely ridiculous. And one thing that kills me about all of these people that read Alice in Wonderland, and that it's like the we're all mad here kind of thing, where everything is wacky and silly, and that's what insanity is.
it's
I
not.
really wish those people really understood what Lewis Carroll was writing about. Lewis Carroll was writing about fucking math. Basically, Alice in Wonderland was his hate letter for non-Euclidean math. And I'll find the link and I'll put it up on the Facebook link for the dissection of it and how everything gets explained as Lewis Carroll was an old school mathematician and fucking hated new math shit. And that's what Alice in Wonderland. It's not about drugs. It's not about any of that shit. It's about fucking math. So this guy is taking this, and it's you hit it right on the head with the Malkavian players.
Yeah.
You know, it's just because something is wacky and silly and nonsensical, that's not what insanity is.
No, it's not. And that's the thing that just that drives me up the wall, right? It's the type of people who think that all that schizophrenia is seeing things that aren't there, or that you have another voice in your head, right? Like they don't understand that there's actually a lot of difference between multiple personality disorder and identity,
Right.
D-
Dissociative identity.
thank you, DID. And it's just or the fact that there's a difference between a psychopath and a sociopath, and just because you're a sociopath doesn't mean that you're going to go on, you're going to be a serial killer, and just
No, it generally means you're going to go be in Congress or be a CEO. That's what it is.
or yeah,
Sociopaths make the best CEOs.
they do, because they have no emotional connection and therefore can focus solely on making money. But I mean, that's the type of thing that drives me up the wall regarding um, these types of stories, is that it's not just is that it in some ways feels lazy to me.
Absolutely. I've yet to,
Yeah.
well, because for it to accurately portray insanity, they'd have had to do quite a bit of research.
Well, and also the thing is that actual insanity
So many
doesn't.
forms.
Well, I mean, it's so many forms, but also it's not generally flashy, right? Like there are the people who are when you hear about their insanity, they're terrifying, right? Like if they're that type of person. Oh, what is his name? Something H Holmes, HHH. He's commonly referred to as the United States' first serial killer. And if you read his Wikipedia page, freaking terrifying, right? Like,
You're saying I shouldn't go read it right now, right before I go to bed?
I mean, it's Wikipedia, so you're probably fine. But I mean, when you think about it, the dude was terrifying. He had a body count, known body count of like above 20 or 30, probably more, right? Like, and to the point where he built an entire hotel in Chicago in the
Oh,
1800s.
I've heard about this guy,
Just
Dr. Henry Howard Holmes.
thank you. Who he built a hotel basically just to
Right, the
just to
murder
murder
castle.
people. Yeah, and so I mean, instances like that, or like John Wayne Gacy, or any of the any serial killers like that, they're relatively few and far between. Um, and normal mental illness, or as normal as mental illness can be, it's not exciting, right? It's not. It basically just makes people's lives difficult, and this idea that, and it also makes a lot of people just really uncomfortable. And that's the thing that gets me, is that authors so often, well, bad authors so often use insanity or mental illness as this excuse for wild and crazy things happening, and it does actual, I think, disservice to people who do suffer from mental illness, um, because it portrays their struggles as either a laughable thing or as some sort of wild fantasy. And yeah, I just this book sucked.
Yep.
It just sucked, and I can't recommend it to anybody. Like, and
I
the thing,
highly recommend this book if you hate yourself.
See, and the thing is that I don't know about you. I think like the concept could be good, right? Like that whole Lovecraft, Lewis Carroll sort of thing.
If you want to read an updated Alice in Wonderland book, I read it already. I gotta find the name of it. The series is The Looking Glass Wars.
See, I read the first one, and
Frank Better, Looking Glass Wars, Seeing Red.
yeah, I've read the Looking Glass Wars, and it was okay. Um,
Tons better than this book.
well, sure, it was. I mean, but that's damning it with faint praise. Um, but yes, I think that
God
one
damn it,
is
Amazon.
better. What?
I looked up Frank Better Looking Glass Wars, and it gave me a fucking recommendation for John Ringo.
No,
No, John
no,
Ringo.
Amazon, no, John Rico, no.
You know what? Or just watch the fucking Tim Burton Alice in Wonderland. That's some fun times.
And even has aspects of Looking Glass Wars in it. Like there's some things where I'm like, did somebody who did the graphics for this read this other book? Because it seems really cribbed. But yeah, I just can't recommend this book. Don't read it. Don't do yourself a favor. Just stay away. That's terrible. Yeah, that's it. I don't have anything else to say. Do you have anything else you want to say?
No, because I drank a lot this episode.
Okay. All right.
That's how bad this book was. I usually don't drink that much during these episodes. So that was season 4, episode 9, Insanity by Cameron Jace. Upcoming, we've still got 2 more episodes to record before the end of the year,
which we're fucking going to do. God damn it,
it's gonna happen.
Saturday night.
So we've got our wrap up of all the shitty books we've read, and then our what we read this year that was good and can recommend to you.
Ugh, I did not do a lot of good reading this year, unfortunately, but we'll get there. All right. So anyway,
I have a lot of fucking guilty pleasure reading to talk about.
Oh, that's
like stuff that I'm like, I don't want to. It's not like gonna win any Pulitzers or anything, but it was entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll talk about that in 2 episodes.
All right, awesome. So
hopefully I'll have this one. They'll have the convolution episode up before this one goes up. If they go up out of order, I'm sorry. Don't write me angry emails, or do. I'm kind of bored lately, so I'll have something to read.
I will take care of ripping this one and putting it in the Dropbox for you to upload.
Great. I will say one good thing about this book. This book has given me a new activity on the internet, and that is spectating the flame wars in Amazon reviews.
Really?
Somebody will go in and write a shitty review on a book, like on Insanity. And someone will go in and argue with them for their review. And then people start choosing sides, and it's amazing.
I might have to go look at this.
This book, Insanity, actually has 4.5 stars. Only 2% of the reviews are 1-star reviews. But the first 1-star review you can find is exactly what we said, where it's shitty writing. It's like it's poor writing. And somebody's like, this book is super clunky and really hard to read. And the first response to that is, I think you're complaining about the way a painting gets painted instead of what gets painted. And the first response to that is, it's a terrible book.
There's that critique that doesn't even make sense. Like, yeah, you can in fact complain about a way a painting is painted because there's actual ways that you like.
You know what?
If you're painting a cubist painting, and you're not following the techniques that would.
It's apples and oranges though, because it doesn't. I don't give a crap if you put the paintbrush in your teeth and just fling paint into canvas. If the end product is good, it doesn't matter how you painted it.
Oh, sure.
If the end product of a book if the end product of a book is good, it doesn't matter how you wrote it.
If they wrote it by tapping the keyboard with their scrotum or like tying a pencil to their nose, whatever. Like, who gives a shit, right?
So.
As long as the story's entertaining,
Right.
we don't care.
You know, it's like Colin's gin and tonics. At the Renaissance Fair, my friend Colin makes the best gin and tonics I've ever had. And I asked him one day what his secret was, and he says, I dip my balls in it. And he's trying if I can get a reaction out of me, of course. And I said, dude, if that's what you do to make them taste the way they do, keep doing it.
Yeah, that was not the response he was expecting, I think.
You know what? With the people we know, it's really hard to actually shock anyone because we are all just as fucked up as everyone else.
That is true. Like, when Tim shows me pictures of his testicles, I'm like, nothing I haven't seen before from you. Like,
You know
at
what
this
I
point,
say whenever Tim shows me pictures of his balls, whenever I
hmm,
get a text, I say, "Oh, they're like real balls, only smaller." And then I hide for a week because he'll probably murder me.
all right, so we're now over an hour. Let's wrap
We're,
this up.
we are good for season 4, episode 9.
I think so too.
Thank you for listening and sticking with us, everybody who eventually hears this. It's
Yeah,
been kind of a crazy roller coaster year,
next year
and
should be a lot more even.
I'm not
Like,
going to make any promises because every time I promise something,
it goes
something
horribly
else
awry.
fucking breaks. So we're gonna try.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. We're gonna try. All right, everybody. Thank you very much. This was season 4, episode 9, Insanity by Cameron Jace. I am Matt,
This is Tyler.
and good night.